Welcome to Ask Earl Anything. This is the show where your questions make the show. Without your questions, we don't have a show. Happy New Year, 2024. This is the first show for 2024. This is going to be, in February, will be my 7th season of Ask Earl Anything. It's the last episode in the 6th year of production of Ask Earl Anything. And believe it or not, we've had a long, fun run with this show. It started out as a weekly show in 2018, and I quickly, within a year, kind of figured out that once a week is a little tough. I have been trying to up my production values a little bit over the years, and I found that once a month kind of works for my subscribers. I asked that question this year, and you all said, no, don't change anything. So we have long-form YouTube videos, question and answer style. It's almost like doing a live stream without doing a live stream. Because what I do is I take your questions and I answer them over the period of time it takes to answer all the questions in a month. Now, I am recutting the intro from yesterday's video. This is New Year's Eve, December 31st, 2023. I did an intro to the Ask Earl Anything question section, and I wasn't happy with it this morning when I woke up, and I thought, let me recut this and put in some of the things I really want to say. So Happy New Year is the first thing I wanted to say. I plan on releasing this tomorrow on New Year's Day, so Happy New Year. Now, a couple things I really want to stress. One of the big things that came out of 2023 for me is, and I've been seeing this for a while, but when I started doing drum covers in 2017 faithfully, I'll say it. I did do some in 16, but 17 was the year it really happened. And by the way, if you got a cup of coffee, take a couple sips, sit back. This is a long show, so just enjoy it. If it takes you 2 or 3 sittings to watch it, that's how most of you guys watch Ask Earl Anything, the faithful viewers. You guys just have a cup of coffee and you watch it when you can over a couple days. I do appreciate that. Thank you for the watches. But when I started this in 2017, there was an established drum community that I became a part of. Actually, a couple drum communities. Michael Perry had a community. Drum Covers by Bill had a community. Drum Man 190 had a community. My friend Ronnie had I forget what he called himself. He had a different name for himself at the time. I think he just goes by Ronnie Drums now, but he had a little community. Everybody was trying to do their community. My friend Tony, he had a community. All American Drum Covers, I think he went by. And I found myself in a multitude of communities. Presently in our drum world, there's a lot of drum communities out there. I am not really a part of any of the drum communities anymore, except for I have friends in all the drum communities out there. My favorite thing is to meet pro drummers, pro level drummers, and drummers of all ages, but especially the guys that are older seem to gravitate to me because of the kind of material I play. Even though I've got some really heavy rockers like Trey B, and I've got some Christian rockers like Eric at the Drum Attic, he's a Christian, or a CCM drummer. I've got some worship drummers that follow me, even though I'm not really the worship drumming authority. They're more worship drumming authorities. One of my friends, Jordan, I think his name is, he does a lot of times from, the Sunday seat kind of position. He does things about worship. So I have a lot of friends in a lot of the different communities and streams that are out there. But this year I've really created a solid community of drummers that really enjoy what I do, and I enjoy what they do, and I've made friends with a bunch of you. Last few years I've been making friends with you. In 22 I met up with John Morano, who's 805 Breeze. Visited with him, had lunch with him, hung out in the studio, jammed with him a little bit. And I would love to do more of that if I'm ever in your neighborhood, or if you're ever in my neighborhood. And over the last 7 years, I have actually met up with drummers. I've had coffee with drummers. They've stopped in my studio. They've hung out with me, Michael Perry, Drum Covers by Bill, and others have stopped in, said hi, and we visited for a while. And that's because I love community. I believe in community. I believe the church is supposed to be community. It's supposed to be koinonia, shared life. And I feel like in our digital world that we live in today, some of us never get outside of our digital world. I really tried to get outside the digital world. I feel like community in YouTube land is kind of like hanging at the drum shop. I've had a couple friends say that to me. It's like when I listen to you talk, it's like hanging around at the drum shop and we're all hanging out talking about the latest gear and cymbals and snare drums and drum kits and famous drummers and modern drummer articles. And that's how we used to do it. And I love hanging out in drum shops. I visited some of the greatest drum shops in the United States over the last 25 years of traveling for business. I knew where they were, and whenever I was in town, I would stop there and go to those drum shops. That was kind of what it was about. So this drum community is a hang, and I've got a hang going. And I want to acknowledge the people that are part of the hang, and I want to have more people that are part of the hang. You know, this past month, last 2 months, let's go to the past 2 months, I have talked to guys like John Morano on the phone, Jeff Metz on the phone, Bob Spalding, Drum City Bob, I talked to him over the break here. Jeff Wald, great drummer. If you don't know Jeff Wald's playing, check him out. Jim Hurley, not Jim Hurley. Jim Hurley's an old friend from the cable industry. If you watch me, Jim Hurley, say hi. Jim Huey. Jim Huey's a friend for the last few years. Great drummer, instrument repair guy, but great drummer, jazz drummer, Jim Huey. I talked to him on the phone not recently. Greg Oneoff. I saw Tate Berkey play drums in town when he was in town. So getting to see and meet with you guys. Oh, I also talked to Eric of the Drum Attic. I hung out with him this week too, had some time to talk. I love talking to guys about drums. I love sharing my knowledge with them and getting to know people. That's what this is all about for me. That's why I try to answer my every response. I try to respond to everybody that responds to my videos. I try to be kind. As I said, try. Sometimes it's not easy. Some of you guys don't make it easy to be kind, but I try. It's just who I am. So I look forward to more community in 2024. I look forward to getting to know more of you because I'd love to hear your stories. I'd love to get to know your drumming passions and things you have done. I also want to shout out to one subscriber this year who asked a question. So I'm going to answer his question because I didn't do as good a job on answering the question yesterday as I'm going to do today because I had to really think about this one a little bit. But in the thought process, I've decided to, for 2023, I'm going to add something, and I'm going to call it Subscriber of the Year. My Subscriber of the Year. And this is not a person I get to talk to on the phone. Maybe someday we will hook up on the phone and talk. But my Subscriber of the Year is James Lyon. He encourages me all the time. He is constantly encouraging me on my covers. He doesn't say a lot, doesn't write a lot. Sometimes just hearts and drums. But basically, he encourages me on just about every video I do. I did a video this year called... and I will screw this up if I don't look down at it, Glorious Day, which I believe he has 3,000 of the views on Glorious Day. Now, maybe only 2,900 views on Glorious Day, but he has liked, shared, and watched that video more than anybody else. I can tell you that right now. Just go look at the video and see how many times he puts his little markings on the comment section. Thank you, James, for loving Glorious Day by Casting Crowns. Now, that makes you Subscriber of the Year. You're the guy that watched the videos the most times, probably this year too. Because I only did probably 300 and something odd videos, right? And you did 300 views on that one video. So you're well up there in the Subscriber of the Year category, James. So thank you for being the Subscriber of the Year. And you know what, James? I have a pair of sticks that nobody claimed this month. So if you write me an email to my email address, earldrum@aol.com, send me your address, I will send you a pair of sticks, a signed pair of sticks from me for you. So you write me if you see this. I hope you do. Now, your question. The question you asked was, what was my most memorable gig? And boy, oh boy, that is a hard question to answer. I've had many memorable gigs, okay? Now, I have memorable gigs that are funny gigs. I have memorable gigs that are, crash and burn type scenario gigs. And some of these are very funny stories after the fact, weren't funny when you're doing them. On the memorable gig front, some of the highlight gigs, I would call them, I played at Creation Festival, a big Christian festival in Pennsylvania every year. I think they just ended in the last couple of years after COVID. I played at Creation 90 with a band called Water. We were on the main stage. We opened up for the Newsboys. I think the Newsboys were probably a band for 4 or 5 years at that point. Just getting notoriety in CCM, they're still around. We were on the stage before the Newsboys that day. Joe English was backstage with us, praying with us. Joe English is the famous drummer that played with Paul McCartney and Wings. He's got an incredible testimony and story. I followed him as a CCM artist. Matter of fact, I probably need to do some Joe English songs. That first album was incredible. So note to self, when I watch this again, Joe English, find some Joe English CCM tunes. Excellent stuff. He had some great... The first album was one of my favorite albums by Joe English. Got to meet Joe English. Wasn't real talkative, but I did get to meet him. It was kind of cool. That was a memorable gig. Another memorable gig was the recording session for Daniel McManus in 2014 when we recorded at the church, which was a high school auditorium down here in Palm Beach County. And basically, just recording that album, that was a highlight for me. In fact, I didn't get cut and I stayed on it and they used all my tracks. I have some of those videos available to you to see me the night of. The drum video is terrible because all you're actually watching is me mostly with some of my hands. But it wasn't well lit or anything else. But I did sync my playing with the original mixed recording. So if you want to see a couple of those tunes, put Daniel McManus in and you can search it, or I may actually put a couple links to one or two of the videos on this one. That was a memorable gig. I also had the blessing of playing with some Christian artists at different points in time. Guys that were world-renowned worship leaders, like Danny Daniels from The Vineyard. I played once with him. I played with Jason Upton, who in the 2000s was a spectacular worship leader. The reason I played with Jason Upton was my friend Michael Terrell, who passed away last year. Michael Terrell was a guy I did a lot of playing with in town, and he was my earliest connection down here in South Florida to musicians. And I did a lot of playing with Michael Terrell. Michael used to be in Mile and the Fever and Broken Heart back in the day. I miss you, Michael. I got to play with, who else did I get to play with? I played with Mile Lefevre once, but that was at a church I was at. He came in and he enjoyed us playing together. And probably one of the guys that's one of the most famous guys I ever played with, a guy named Mike Dacey, who was part of the Wrecking Crew and played on the Association, the Beach Boys, Elvis's Comeback Special. Played on a ton of the early CCM stuff by Second Chapter of Acts. Produced Bullfrogs and Butterflies by Barry McGuire. Mike's a great guitarist. I did a bunch of touring with him in the 90s. A couple years there. He was at my church, and I became his kind of church tour drummer in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, New York State. We even went to Kentucky and West Virginia on a little tour. So those are all memorable to me. I have many memorable gigs that went kind of south. And some of those gigs were gigs with my wife, because we had a band, Radiance and Celebration. And I remember we played her Aunt Judy's wedding. And the guitar player, this was when we were Celebration, the guitar player was so loud they had to move a table and he wouldn't turn down. I had a couple gigs like that. I had another incarnation of Radiance. That was the last name of the band that we had. where we were playing and it was foreboding rain and thunderstorms, and we're outdoors, we're outside playing on a back deck, and they wouldn't let us play inside, and we had to stop the gig, and that broke the whole band up after that. That was the last gig we ever did with those guys, because we were in and out trying to set up the band in the right place so we could play. That was a mess. I had some those are memorable from a bad reason why. But I had lots of fun doing a lot of different types of gigs and playing a lot of different things. So it's kind of hard to pick a most memorable gig. Memorable is a hard word to say. Memorable. Most memorable gig. It's very hard to pick one. I would say I wish I had more gigs with my wife and I playing together with the wedding band, because those were times that, I don't know. Those were times that I can't get back that I wish we had. And maybe someday, maybe, I'll get a little jazz trio, my wife's singing some of those old American standards, American songbook standards, and maybe we'll do it again. I'd love to get her singing again. She doesn't feel she has the voice anymore, but those were some fun days when we were together doing it and playing in church together. We played in church together a lot during the 80s and 90s, even into the early 2000s. So those are memorable gigs to me, getting to play with my wife and do music with my wife. So anyhow, I don't think I gave you one memorable gig. I gave you a whole bunch of them. But thank you, James, for being a subscriber, and thank you for sharing and liking my videos. I appreciate it. All right, 2 more things before we get into the questions. This month, we did not have a Drum Kit of the Month. Now, I'm going to call it Drum Kit of the Month for 2024. And what I mean by Drum Kit of the Month is this. Send me a picture of you behind your kit, or a video of you showing me your drum room where you play your kit. It's got to be clear. It's got to be something we can see. But I will feature drummers on that feature called Drum Kit of the Month. And I may feature a couple drummers depending on what I get. Now, not giving away any more sticks. My last pair of sticks is going to James if he writes in. So it's not for sticks anymore. But, because you know what, truth of the matter is, mailing drumsticks costs some money, and I can't find a good box to put them in. That's the big problem. So I think those of you that got drumsticks from me know that. So I'm hoping to start Drum Kit of the Month, pictures and videos, and as a feature, picture or video. And one other thing I want to do this year is I want to take a limited number of students this year via Skype, FaceTime, Facebook Messenger. I'd like to take a limited number of students. So if you're somebody looking for some drum coaching, I'm going to call it drum coaching more than lessons, how to get into this game here, I'd like to help you. Now, of course, just want to be my friend, I definitely will talk to you about that kind of stuff offline. But if you want to take a few lessons and get a little bit more dialed in how to do some stuff, I can also set that up too. I think my future, in the future, next 5 years, 6 years, is going to be to have a thriving drum lesson business. So another thing I'm going to add to this year is going to be drum grooves of the week. I'm going to try to do drum groove of the week this year. Now, I did film the first 5 this past week. Just going to be a really short video. It's going to have the figure written out for you. You can repeat it over and over again if you want. Watch it slow motion, however you want to do it in YouTube. And these are funk grooves from the Funk Drumming Workbook by Chet Dobo. So these are grooves from the Funk Drumming Workbook. Let's try this again. These are grooves from the Funk Drumming Workbook by Chet Dobo this month. I may pick other books and talk about how I work with these books and play the grooves. But I think what I'm trying to say to you is I want to do a little bit of once a week, put out something that's kind of something you can learn something from. The Funk Drumming Workbook was one of those books that was influential in my playing. It kind of goes with listening to Tower of Power. So the Funk Drumming Workbook listening to Tower Power, listening to Seawind, listening to a lot of the great R&B artists, Earth, Wind, and Fire, etc. That book kind of lines up with it. Fancy Funk. Anyhow, I'm sharing some of my favorite grooves from the Funk Drumming Workbook this month, during the month. So I hope you enjoy that. All right, let's get to the questions. Enough of me in my Sunday best. Oh, by the way, as you all know, I retired the hat. This is my new look. This is the look that got me to my new look, was when I did a video in this shirt with my white hair. Just got a haircut yesterday, so it looks a little bit better than yesterday, I think. Second day usually does look better. Grab a cup of coffee. We got a whole bunch of questions. Happy New Year. Thanks for being followers of Ask Earl Anything and my drum channel. Appreciate it. More to come. All right, my first question comes from Jimbo171000. His question is, I have a question on which headphones to use when you listen to music while you are playing. I've been playing for 64 years now and still enjoy playing and practicing rudiments. Thanks for your help. His name is Jim. Thank you, Jim, for the question. Now, there's lots of choices in headphones, okay? What I always say to guys practicing with a drum kit, a good set of isolation headphones allows you to bring the music into your ears, but also isolates the drums and cuts out some of the volume of the cymbals, is a good idea. So Vic Firth makes those, Cat makes those. I have a couple pairs of studio headphones that I use, one being the Beyerdynamic. I think they're the M750s or 880s. 770s or 880s. I use them on a few videos. I also have the Sennheiser 290s. Now, I used to know these numbers by heart back in the day. I don't use headphones that often anymore. My most common way to listen to music for drum covers is in-ear monitors. And I have a pair of 1964 in-ears triple drivers that I bought in 2013 that are molded for my ear. And I like them the best, and I like using them the best. But it's not always possible to get expensive in-ear monitors, and they do break periodically. And I had a period in October where I had a couple weeks where I had to get a new cable for the ears, and I was using headphones. And that's when I got back into the Beyerdynamics for a while. The Beyerdynamics are really nice headphones, bass rich, isolate the drums a little bit. Sounds good in your ears. So that's a good set of headphones right there, the Beyerdynamics. And I'll show a picture of that here in the description. But if you can afford in-ear monitors, I did not like the in-ear monitors with the little rubber. I had to go to actual in-ear monitors with the mold to actually really appreciate in-ear monitors. That being said, there are the Shure 215s, 315s, 415s. There's a bunch of companies that make in-ear monitors that have little rubber foam pieces or rubber pieces. They go in your ear and work pretty well. So you don't have to spend a lot of money on in-ear monitors, but I was going for something a little more professional at the time. I was playing a lot of churches, and it just fit my life, and it worked really well. And I use them today when I do covers. So those in-ear monitors get a lot of use. They get a lot of use. For the last 4 years, I've been using them pretty exclusively on drum covers. So that's my preferred method of monitoring music to play drum covers to. So I hope that helps you, Jim. Thanks for the question. My next question comes from Jeff Metz. And Jeff says, question, now that you have an 18-inch floor tom, I was wondering if you thought about different setups that haven't been seen from you yet. My thought is having the 15-inch along with your 18 on the right. I was always thought the 12, 15, 18 combo made a lot of sense with 3 inches between each drum. Much like the 10, 13, 16 makes a lot of sense. So maybe you can do 6, 8, 10, 12, 15, 18 for the 6-inch tom on the kit. Or even 10, 13, 15, 18, creating 2, 3, 2-inch gap toms. Anyhow, let me know what you think. All right, Jeff, here's what I think. I think, yeah, someday I'll do that. I don't know if you saw the cover I did of Dixie Chicken, but I had a 10-inch tom, a 13. I didn't go to the 15 because I had the 15 on the kit, but I thought about it that day. I took the 13 and the 14 and went to the 18. I thought that was kind of a nice big tom kit, you know what I mean? I think the sky's the limit what I can do with drums. I do have this preference to playing this little wraparound kit lately. I had the 15, 16 down low, the 18 over here for a while. I'm enjoying the 6 so much, it's part of the setup right now. But someday it'll be back to 10, 12, 13, 10, 12, 14, 16. I will tell you the 18-inch floor tom is huge. It's huge. Sounds huge, and it's huge space-wise. It's hard for me to make this fit in this space right here. I always thought a 14 by 14 floor tom would be perfect for this kit. 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 with a 14 by 14 floor tom. I believe that's what Danny Serafin had on his white Snare kit, but some versions of it say 16 by 16 floor tom, and I'll let Tate Berkey tell me differently. Tate's doing a lot of research on the Danny Serafin drum kits even to this day, so hope to hear more about that. But I thought it was a 14 by 14 in 77 on the Chicago 11 tour. But by the time he did the Hot Streets tour, I think he might have had a 16 floor tom. 10, 12, 13, 10, 12, 14, 16, and a 16 floor tom. And then at some point he got an 18. I know that on the 13 tour, Chicago 13. I think he had a 16 and an 18 possibly. I know he had concert toms on that tour too. So drum kits are cool because you can put as many different tom sizes and shapes together as possible and make very cool kits. And some of my favorite drummers always had very cool drum kits. So I am blessed to have so many drums. So you will see more combinations. I've been thinking about doing a double bass setup with the 18 and the 22. I just haven't done it yet. It's a lot of work to rearrange stuff. It's not so much to move a couple toms, but it's a lot of work when you have to move kits and put extra pedals in, and it's a lot to think about. But I do think about it because I think you guys dig seeing the drum kit set up in different ways. And I know, Jeff, you do dig seeing the drum kits set up in different ways. So I will try to accommodate that in the future. More drum kit changes to come in the future, I promise. So, but haven't done this setup yet. Maybe someday soon I'll do it. All right, the next one comes from Greg One-Off. I think I have 2 from Greg today again. Greg says, can you explain and show the difference between triple flange hoops and die cast hoops, please? Now, to actually do this requires me to get a drum that's got a die cast hoop. These are triple flange hoops. Gretsch drums use a die cast hoop. A die cast hoop is a very thick cast hoop. Okay, it's a cast metal. I don't believe it's aluminum, but it could be. But it is a cast metal. It's thick, it's heavy, it's rigid. The hoops on this kit are Pearl. I think they're 1.7 mil triple flange hoops. Triple flange hoops have a more open sound. They're lighter in weight, so the drum may resonate differently than on a triple die cast hoop. Gretsch drums use die cast hoops. The original Gretsch drums use die cast hoops on the top and the bottom. And that's one of the distinctive sound qualities of Gretsch drums, is the die cast hoops. Now, some guys like die cast hoops on snare drums. My Black Beauty 6.5 by 14 has a die cast hoop. My Acrylite has a 8-lug die cast hoop on the top with a triple flange on the bottom. This drum, the Black Beauty 5 by 14, has triple flange on both sides. So it really comes down to what kind of sound you're going for. Die cast hoops are a little bit more focused. but they're not as open. They've got a different kind of ring than triple flange does. So they both are important. They both are valid. Some guys like triple flange better than die cast. Some guys like die cast better than triple flange. Being a Gretsch guy, you have to love die cast hoops. So I love die cast hoops on my Gretsch drums. I love it on some of my snare drums, but to be honest, I love the triple flange on other snare drums. And I think the concert toms, do not require die cast, so they're triple flange. So the difference is the rim. So this is my 6.5 by 10 inch Gretsch tom for my maple kit. Totally different sounds, aren't they? So let me do this. Listen to the rim. Thick cast rims, okay? These are pearl cast rims, by the way. This was a concert tom at one time, by the way. This is a 6.5 by 10 Gretsch maple concert tom that I converted. You can tell by the lugs, the way they're done, that I converted it into a double-headed tom, and I had Resurrection drums do the bearing edges for me. But really, this is just a heavier hoop. It's heavier. It's got a certain sound to it. So hope that helps you, Greg. That's the seeing it, so you can see the difference. The Gretsch drums have got die cast. The concert toms have got triple flange. Probably your drums have triple flange, by the way. Continuum drums, my friend Lutz from Germany. He asks a question. He says, nice song. This was Magic, the song Magic from Pilot. He said, your hi-hat's so clear. Which mic is that in the mix predominantly? I think it's the overheads. Anyway, sounds way cool. All right, let's talk about hi-hat sounds. Now, I don't mic the hi-hat in this room or that room very often. Occasionally, not often. I do have two overheads over my head. They are MK012s, Octavas. They are in an XY pattern over my head. They are getting a lot of the hi-hat, but I also believe a lot of the hi-hat comes from this snare mic. Matter of fact, I know a lot of it comes from it because I do a lot of mixing of these covers, and the hi-hat is in that microphone. It gets so much bleed. It's easy to mix in and make it work, and that's what I do, rather than have a separate hi-hat mic and try to take out the hi-hat frequencies. The hi-hat frequencies are part of the snare frequencies that work. When you look at the curve on a parametric EQ of a snare drum, there's a couple places I cut and there's a couple places I boost. So I usually cut somewhere around 150K to 100K, and I kind of swoop down and cut. And then about 200-ish, so it could be a little below 200 into a little bit of 210, 205, somewhere in that range, I put a little bump in the parametric. Between 3 and 400K, I kind of scoop down. So I have got this scoop that I kind of suck in and try to suck out the nasty sound out of the snare drum. And then around 4 or 5K, there's a little bump, small bump. And then at 10, there's a kind of a ride out where he kind of lifts up. So you can actually see the, there's a name for that type of notch, by the way. You would think I would know it, but I know what it looks like and I know how to do it. And that's where the hi-hat frequency ends up being somewhere about 5K, 6K. So that little bump brings the hi-hat out a little bit. Now, if the hi-hat's too big, I will cut that back down to almost zero, back to the floor, and not have any kind of bump in that area if I need to, or even pull it out if I have to. So I think a lot of my hi-hat sound has to do with how I play the hi-hat. Now, that's a different technique. Now I'm going through a pad right now, so I have a pad right here. So part of my sound is I mix myself while I'm playing drums to a video or to a song. Meaning, I want my kick and snare to be predominant. I want my hi-hat not to be predominant. I'm not playing my hi-hat really loud, which means I'm not doing... I'm not playing it hard. I'm actually playing that pattern kind of soft. So the 2 and the 4 are popping out, the kick drum's popping out, but the hi-hat is pulled back. That is called self-mixing yourself in the headphone, into the overheads and all the mics on the kit. And I do that as a practice all the time. That's why I have my overheads set up in a way where I can hear myself through the overheads. I don't have a lot of kick and snare mic in the mix in my ears, mostly the overhead. And I can hear how loud I am playing things. Now, some songs require more of that. If you need that sound, you pull it out. But it's how you mix yourself into the microphones that makes your sound when you mix it, more than anything else. So I would say, if you're playing acoustic drums, practice in a way where you mix yourself into your mic setup. And that's why having a microphone in the room that you monitor yourself through into your headphones is really important. If you don't hear yourself in your headphones, you just hear the music, it's kind of hard to get that feel. But playing in the studio, one of the things I've learned is if you get a good drum mix in your headphones, not too loud, but there, it will help you to play your mix to the music in a way that you mix yourself when you're playing drums. So my hi-hat sound has a lot more to do with how I mix myself versus playing to the mic. The microphone has a lot less to do with it. It has more to do with how I mix myself. And that's why I feel comfortable with 2 overhead mics and a kick and a snare mic and the tom mics. By the way, the tom mics are gated, so they rarely have anything coming through them other than the toms. So it's really the snare mic and the overheads that pick up that hi-hat. So that's the answer to that question. All right, Lutz, thanks for the question. It was a good one. Really good question. Thank you. And there's a lot to be learned about self-mixing yourself during recording. All right, my next question comes from Jay Drums Music. Jay's an old friend from the old drum community. He asked a question about, this was on Hurt So Bad. He asked, he says, your miking sounds really good. Makes me want to mic up my acoustic kit and give it a whirl. He plays a Roland TD30, which, if you play electronic kit, it kind of mixes itself. You can mix yourself on your electronic kit a certain way. Again, back to the mixing yourself in the microphones. He says, have you made a video breaking down your recording gear? And what are you using to make drumless tracks these days? That's 2 questions. So Jay, here's the thing. I have a video about how I make drum covers that has a breakdown of my studio, I think, pretty much in there. Presently, I use a Presonus 24x4x2 board. A couple outboard preamps for the other kit more than this kit. Everything in this kit goes into that Presonus. Microphone-wise, could be anything. On that kit, I use E604s, Sennheisers for the toms mostly, but occasionally an MD421 shows up, or an E609 guitar mic shows up on that kit. 57s on the snare. On that kick drum, I've got a Beta 52. On this one, I've got an AKG D112E. Overheads, 2 Octavas, MK012s made in Russia. The other kit's got SM81s, Shure. Both are coincident miking down. No hi-hat mics for the most part. This kit has got a hodgepodge of microphones. I've had all kinds of microphones on this kit, by the way. I've tried a lot of different mics. I've come to really like these AKG C1000s that were my first overheads, by the way. They sound great on toms. They work very well on the toms. And I've got this MK319 Octava mic from Russia that I use over the 2 lower toms. On this tom, I have a Pro 25 Audio-Technica mic. Again, the kick drum's got a D112E and an SM57 on the snare. All of my gating and compression and EQ goes in the box, meaning inside the DAW. So I do all that in Logic. Everything is a straight mic run. There's no EQ, compression, or anything on the drums coming from the board, even though I could do that. I've never done that. It's just not what I do. I find if you mess with it too much and then you've got other people in the studio messing with things, those settings get all messed up. Even though it's digital, you would think I know how to save stuff. The digital board is more complicated than an analog board, to be honest. I have an analog board behind this over here, an old Yamaha board that, you just turn the knobs and you understand what it means. But you start playing on a digital board, it's easier to work with a parametric EQ and Logic and just figure out the frequencies you want to pull out and push up, rather than messing with it on the board and getting a channel all messed up and then finding you recorded something all messed up. So I just record straight from the preamps, straight into the interface. Well, that is the interface, into the computer. That's pretty much what I use. So all my processing is, inside the box. My favorite plugins for the DAW, for the snare drum, I would say my snare drum is a Pultec EQ from Universal Audio, the regular standard Pultec EQ. I love the punchy snare setting. It's my startup setting, and then I kind of dial in what I like. I use a normal Logic parametric EQ, and on that one I use a Renaissance compressor, which is a Waves plugin, and an SPL, what do they call it? It's kind of like Transient Designer, that's what it is. SPL Transient Designer on the snare. I use the Transient Designer on the kick drum. I use the Neve N88 console, or channel strip, I guess is what it is technically. It's got a gate, compressor, EQ. I use the kick drum setting. I kind of tweak from there in that. I also have a parametric EQ on that too. But all the compression and gating are coming from that. There's no gating on the snares. My toms is a straight Logic tom channel, except for the gate. The gate is the Oxford gate from Oxford, I guess. That's who makes it. Oxford drum gate, it's called. I use 2 settings on there. One is a very dynamic tom setting where it's open toms. The other one is kind of muted, like T-towels. I find the T-towel setting gives that vintage sound. Works great on the concert toms, even though the concert toms, sometimes I use the open setting. On the other kit, I usually use the T-towel setting, believe it or not, for most of the tom stuff these days. It sounds good. Nobody knows the difference. There's no towels on it. It's just the way the gate gates. I use that on the gates. I use the gates on the toms. So that's pretty much what I'm doing for production inside the box. Again, all of this has to do with how you play the drums and how you self-mix while you're recording. And believe it or not, I'm playing lighter and lighter these days. One of the things I've been working on this year is playing with the sticks this way, playing my rim clicks this way. By the way, it has a terrible rim click because I have the pad on it again. So I am really working on not playing back into the stick anymore. I do it once in a while, but for the most part, I'm playing this way. I think it helps my technique too. My rolls. So self-mixing again. Let's see. Guess what that song was? Just did a revisited cover of that one. It may have even come out. Now it'll come out after this. Guess what song that is? Anyhow, hope that helps, Jay. Oh, your other question. Right now, I went from Extract Stems. I used Extract Stems for the last 4 years. My subscription to Extract Stems is officially gone. I turned it off in September. I was having real problems with Extract Stems this past year. And September 1st, I bought Moises, and I haven't turned back. Moises is such a great stem producing program. It does so much more than Extract Stems does. It actually tells you the key. It makes you a click track. It separates the 5 stems. You can get it closer to keyboard. You can change the type of stems you get if you want strings or piano or guitar, other than just other. I mean, it's very good. It's a very good program, dialed in. So I really am enjoying Moises. So that's what I use now, is Moises. Extracts is gone. Nice knowing you, Extracts. I did endorse you. It seemed like I used your name a lot previous years, but now it's Moises. So that's it. Moises for drumless tracks. Worth it. By the way, I take the stems into Logic, so I'm not getting a mix of Moises to a 2-track. I'm actually taking 5 stems of audio plus the click track. That's 6 stems of audio into Logic to do drum covers. All right. Thanks for the question. All right, my next question comes from Mickey F3730. Mickey, how you doing, Mickey? This was on Deep Purple, Smoke on the Water. I did that recently. Question, do you find certain shoes help you to play your bass drum better? Certain shoes have thicker soles to help me getting quick doubles out faster and more efficient. Thanks. Let's talk about this. Back in the day, I used to play barefoot, to be honest, or with socks on. Then my heels started hurting in my 40s. So now I play with shoes on. I prefer to play with sneakers or my Snooks. Sanooks, they're called. I have 2 pairs of Sanooks. They are surfer shoes. They're good for beach, or they're good for walking around. They're like slippers almost. I like my Snooks. Now, but I can play a gig in a pair of dress shoes if I have to. And but I prefer playing in sneakers or my Snooks, to be honest. So, but I do know what you're talking about as far as like dress shoes. I remember I used to have dress shoes with the leather bottoms, the Florshems, you know, the old Florshem shoes, and they used to slide around. Used to drive me nuts. That's why I would play with my socks, to be honest. Of course, if your socks are the real slick, silky type socks, then your feet slide a different way on the pedals. But I can't play barefoot anymore on the pedals. I hurt the bottom of my heel when I was doing that for so many years, for like 20-something years. So the last 20 years, it seems like I've been playing with shoes on. Some guys like the really lightweight shoes, wrestlers wear. I've never been that guy. But I do like my Snooks. So my Snooks, I don't know if you'll see my Snooks there in the camera shot. These are my Snooks, but no endorsement paid to me for saying Snooks, but I said it a few times. So Snooks, they're cool. Just got my second pair. Very cool. Snooks, digging it. All right, Mickey, thanks. My next question comes from Yuri Jones. Yuri said, this was on Little River Band Lady. Great groove, how I make the most out of those fantastic 2002's crashes. Cymbals and tons or toms. All right, question. Is it me, but I cannot recall seeing you play splash cymbals in your setups? Now, you know what? I'm going to get up again, and I'm going to show you my splash cymbals. All right, Yuri. I love splash cymbals. I just don't use them very often anymore. I'll be honest. Now, I've got a few Sabians. This is my 10-inch Sabian AA. That's why I don't use them anymore. I use them on a stand. So this one I bought, gosh, early 90s. Bought this. $30 at Rondo Music. I have an AA Splash 8-inch. Still works. I got a HHX Evolution Splash with a little crack in it. You see my little crack thing there. 3 of those. This is my oldest Splash. It's cracked. It's an 8-inch Zildjian. My wife bought it at the Modern Drum Shop in 1984 or 85. We were living in Asbury Park. She bought it for me one Christmas. I haven't tossed it yet. This is a 6-inch Wuhan, kind of weird bell-like thing. I traded this with Dan at DMR Drums for one of my Paiste accents. I bought these at Guitar Center, 2 for $30. Don't know why they're so cheap. Don't use that very often, but occasionally. Now, I have 3 Paiste Splashes. I bought a PST-7 a couple years ago. It's nice. Nothing fancy. This is my newest one. This is a PSTX 10-inch. It's kind of trashy. Kelly Kusumoto told me that they crack pretty easily. Based on the fact I've got a 20-inch medium PSTX effects, and it's cracked, I can tell you I probably could crack this pretty quick. So try not to. Only use it occasionally. My favorite, that's my China. My favorite Splash is 11-inch Noiseworks from by Paiste. It was part of the Noiseworks series Dark Buzz China with the 18-inch China and this 10-inch cool Splash. So I do use this occasionally. Not often, but occasionally. I'll hook it up like this. You know, once in a while it shows up. But the truth of the matter is, if I had a Splash, I'd be hitting it all the time. And I don't want to hit it all the time because it's not appropriate for a lot of the music I'm playing. So I try to set up cymbals that are appropriate for the music I'm playing. I do like having a China, though. I only have one good China these days. It's that 18, and I got that PSTX effect cymbal. So, anyhow, got Splashes, just don't play them that often. If I'm doing a police song, I might play them. So, that's my Splash cymbal collection. Thank you very much. All right. Thank you, Yuri. Next question. This is another Greg one-off question. I'm going to try to figure out what the question actually is. I think it became a question. Oh, I know what this is. It's not really a specific question. We were talking about finding cymbals, good cymbals. So one of the quandaries guys have that don't have a lot of cash to spend on cymbals, and by the way, drums are expensive. But there are ways to get budget cymbals. And one of the best ways to get budget cymbals is sometimes going on places like Craigslist and finding a kit that is really beat up but has a couple good cymbals on it. Then all of a sudden you get a couple cymbals. And it's like an investment thing. You buy a kit, you get the cymbals with it, you sell the kit, and you keep the cymbals. Or you keep the kit and you sell the crappy cymbals. But that's one way to get better cymbals. Another way to get better cymbals is to look for certain times of the year when the price comes down. A lot of the bigger stores for a while there, and I will tell you this about my Paiste cymbals. About 5 years ago, Interstate Music was one of the big companies that was out there in the marketplace. Now they're gone. They're not the same company anymore. And what happened with Interstate Music was Interstate Music had to buy X number of dollars worth of Paiste cymbals to keep their Paiste thing. So what they would do at the end of the year is they would basically say, we're selling cymbals, and they would discount them by about, it was a solid discount. I mean, this ride cymbal was like $400, and I got this ride cymbal for like $305, I think. So that's like a $95 discount on a brand new cymbal. I had that happen with the 18-inch Crash. I had it happen with my Giant Beat 18, my Giant Beat 20, my Giant Beat 15-inch hi-hats. I had it happen with this thin Crash. These were cymbals I bought that were called used cymbals. And in actuality, what they were was last year's models that were sitting on the shelf. Meaning, the year was 2016, and what did I get for a cymbal a couple years later? So let's see what this one was. You can tell by the serial numbers. All right, so this was, I think I bought this in 18. No, I bought this in 17. This was actually a 16. It was a last year's model. They wanted to get it off the shelf. I got it. I have a couple that are 2 years back. Like some of the Giant Beats will be 2 year backdated. Like I bought it in 17 and they were 2015. So it's like they didn't want to keep extra inventory. So I got a discount on them. You just got to know what you're looking for. And when it comes to Paistes, you can buy any Paiste cymbal, and a thin Crash sounds like a thin Crash, 16-inch. I mean, my friend John Breeze, 805 Breeze, he bought some Crashes, some Paiste Crashes. His ride probably sounds really close to this ride, and that thin Crash he's got, 16, sounds really close to this thin Crash. And that 18 sounds like the 18. So the other thing is, you're buying Paistes, you're getting consistency. Now, Zildjian's a little different ball game. Like I said, you can go on Craigslist, but if you see A's or K's, you take a shot at them, you buy them. If you don't like them, you sell them. You probably get good money for A's or K's. You stay away from buying garbage cymbals. Meaning, if you're going to buy B8s, Sabian B8s, they're not going to sound that good. Sorry, they just don't. Same thing with Zildjian ZBTs, I'm not a real fan of, okay? Or those black cymbals, I'm not a real fan of. Now, some guys like them, but I don't. So if you like a certain sounding cymbal, you stay away from the garbage and you look for the better ones, and you wait till you see a used one and you look at the price against a new one, and you can go on. The funny thing is, you can go on eBay and kind of price yourself, so if it says 18-inch K Crash, K Custom Crash, right? Or K Crash, and they're telling you no, they're selling it for $400 and it's used, you're going, nah, I'm not doing it. They say I'm selling it for $180. You go, all right, I'll pay $180 for it, because $180 is going to be a decent cymbal, and it's way down from what a K Crash is going to cost you today, brand new. That's the way you got to look at it. So you got to do your research. Doing your research will help you to figure that out. It's a game. And the more knowledgeable you are, the more you're going to score in getting great deals on things. And that's the key to the whole thing. You want to get great deals, you got to do the research. I still look at eBay. I still look at Craigslist. I look places for deals. My friend Sean, Sean's Drum Closet, I think he goes by. I don't know if any of you guys follow him. He's great. I'll put a picture of his stuff, his channel on there. He finds stuff all the time, man. I'm just amazed at the stuff this guy finds. So check his channel out. You want to see a guy who knows how to do it. And again, key is you put something out. If you don't like it, you sell it. And you get something else to keep reworking it. But it becomes a priority. I will tell you, if you have good sounding cymbals and moderate sounding drums, moderate price drums, you'll probably have a good set of drums. If you have the best drums in the world and you're playing B8s, Sabian B8s pros, I got to tell you something, your sound's it's going to lack. So cymbals are a big part of it. And somebody taught me that very young. My first kit, I had a 21-inch rock ride and a 14-inch set of new beats. with my Ludwig Blue Vistalite kit. I kept buying Zildjians because buying Kruts or buying camber cymbals didn't make any sense. They didn't sound good. So you buy cymbals that sound good, and then you get rid of the cymbals that don't sound good. Now, the funny thing is, a lot of the guys are buying really crappy sounding cymbals made by the big cymbal manufacturers to sound crappy. That's what cracks me up the most when I see those. So I'm not a big fan of the real nasty sounding cymbals these days. Unless I want a nasty sounding cymbal, then I want a pretty nasty sounding cymbal, like a pretty china like this one. That has a place, but you don't want them all to sound like that. So keep that in mind. Anyhow, that's just a little bit of cymbal advice. All right, my next question comes from Eddie Ivankin, another guy who knows very knowledgeable stuff. And Eddie asked me a question. He watched my favorite drum covers video, and he said, "This was a perfect Christmas morning watch. Thanks for doing everything you do." I appreciate that, Eddie, a lot. Question on the Carpenters. Do you know if Jim Gordon was on Remember That You Told Me? Also, she plays many of the drum tracks herself. Did she play many of the drum tracks herself? My parents took me to the Carpenters show when I was a kid. Merry Christmas. Well, here's my research on this, Eddie. First off, I couldn't find a Carpenters song with that name. So if you send me the right name, or you look on these two albums, I found out where Jim Gordon's found. Jim Gordon played on two albums. One album was Horizon, 1975. The hit was Only Yesterday. It's a good possibility he played on the hit. It was Jim Gordon and Karen on that. Karen only played on 2 tracks on that album. Karen, for the most part, played on almost every album they made, but she would play a few tracks. They always had Hal or Jim Gordon or other drummers, who you're going to hear in a minute. So let's go back to the top. Ticket to Ride, she played all the drums. That was the first album. First album they cut with Joe Osborne producing. That album, she played all the drums on. Then Close to You came out. So you had We Only Just Begun and Close to You on that one. And Hal played on the hits. And Karen played on the other hit songs. The next album, called Carpenters, Hal played on part of it. And Karen played on a few songs. Song for You was Hal and Karen again. Now and Then. That one, Hal played one song and Karen played a lot of the songs on that one. The next one was Kinda Hush. Jim Gordon played on it. Cubby O'Brien played on it, who was their tour drummer, and Karen played on it. The next album, which was the one in 77, I believe, Passage, that album has Ed Green on drums and Ron Tutt. And Ron Tutt played on the majority of it. He played on 4 cuts. Ed Green played on 3 cuts. Karen didn't play on that album, just sang. Then you got the Christmas album. There's no credit. I couldn't find any credits for the Christmas album. Doesn't mean Karen didn't play on it. Doesn't mean she did play on it. And then Made in America, that album has got Larry London on it, Ron Tutt, and J.R. Robinson on it. So the Carpenters used a lot of studio guys on their albums, and in the latter years of Karen's life, Karen didn't play on the albums, but on the earlier years, she played on a lot of the albums. So Karen Carpenter was a great drummer. She loved being a drummer. She loved playing drums. That was her passion. And she did not want to get out from behind that drum kit. She did not want to sing out front. She wanted to be the drummer. But as Hal Blaine said, she had that beautiful voice. They had to push her out front, and they did. That's why Cubby O'Brien got hired. I saw the Carpenters with Cubby O'Brien and Karen Carpenter. Karen had the clear Vistalite kit with the little concert toms, and Cubby was playing the big Vistalite kit with a lot of concert toms and the double-headed toms. It was a great concert. I think I was 14 years old that summer, and I really, really, really enjoyed that one. So that was a lot of fun seeing the Carpenters. That was one of the reasons why I bought a blue Vistalite kit when I was 15 years old, because they had a blue Vistalite kit just like the one I saw at the Carpenters show up in Blue Note Music, up in the window on the second floor, and I bought that kit. down Broadway in Long Branch, New Jersey. Anyhow, Eddie, hope that helps. Jim Gordon played on a couple albums. Now, I could not find that song, so maybe that's the lyric in one of those songs that I didn't catch. So check out Only Yesterday, and check out the other one was Kinda Hush. Those are 2 albums that Jim Gordon played on for the Carpenters. All right. Next question, and I think it's my last question, comes from my my friend Sean Woodley. And let me find the question the right way so I can read it the right way. All right. Even screenshotting it the right way. All right. So Sean Woodley studied with me, and he asked me, he said, Earl, I have a life question for you. Have you ever felt like you didn't have enough time to dedicate to all the time you wanted to drumming, but on the other hand, you wanted to negotiate your time with your relationships and families and friend time and spending time on drumming and spending all the time on drumming? My relationship's great, but I want to find a healthy balance. Well, Sean, I think you answered your own question, by the way, in the way you kind of wrote it. You have to find a healthy balance in being a drummer, especially if you're in a relationship. That means you basically have to say, hey, I'm going to put this towards my instrument because I have a passion towards it, but I've also got to find time for my family, my kids, girlfriends, wives, significant others, whatever you want to call them today. You have to have a healthy balance. Otherwise, life doesn't work. Now, if you have nobody and all you want to be is a drummer, you can throw all your passion into it. But one day, life changes. You want to be with somebody. You want to share your life with somebody, and that requires you to share your life with them if you want to have a healthy relationship. I'm only talking as a guy that's been married 40 plus years. I'll be 41 years in March. You don't keep a 41-year relationship. We've been together for 42 years probably. You don't keep a 40 plus year relationship without learning how to communicate and spend time with your significant other, your wife, your girlfriend. So you have to have that. The other thing I always say is put your time into your passions, the things you love to do, and what you need to do to be good at something. Sometimes my life has been I have to pour into my work. Sometimes my life's been I'm allowed to pour into my music. I am now in a season of life where my kids do not live here anymore. When they come over, I spend my time with my kids. You know, Christmas Day was my kids and my grandkids. Of course, my grandkids love playing drums, so we ended up in here for a half hour or so, just goofing around with the lighted drumsticks. But in actuality, I spent the majority of the day with them in the house, eating and opening presents and hanging out together and playing games. That's fun. So find the time for family. Don't ever get out of balance. You just find that special balance. And when you do, you'll have a successful relationship. I hope that helps you, Sean. I hope it helps somebody out there finding the balance. You need to find a balance. That's the key. And I always do this also. I'd say this also. It's a law of diminishing returns, you know. There's only so much you can practice to get so good. It gets to a point where you've got it or you don't. So you got to find that too. That's the other thing in life. Find out what you do well and do those things well. But do the things you enjoy. That's why some of you end up going back to it later in life. I never stopped playing music. But I will tell you the majority of my practice time was when I was young. I don't practice now. I play. There's a big difference. I learned how to play songs fast. And that's because all I do is play. I sit down, turn the cameras on, and play. Sometimes I'm done in 10 minutes. Sometimes I'm done in an hour. But the bottom line to the whole thing is I don't say I'm going to practice this and then I'm going to record something. I just play. And every once in a while I get surprised. I got that pretty fast. Because that's what I love to do is play. Playing is what I love to do. So when I'm in behind a drum kit, I want to be playing. And that's why I love playing music. I'm not a soloist. There are guys that spend times working on chops because they want to throw in those solo things. My days of working on licks was a long time ago. Now, I will sit around the kit once in a while when nobody's around. I put on my gun muffs, put them on my ears, and I'll sit and do licks. But I end up going back to the same licks I've been playing forever, it seems like. But then again, if you watch Steve Gadd, you kind of know Steve Gadd's playing the same things he's been playing forever, hasn't he? Maybe he's mutating them a little differently, and I know he's still working on his rudiments because he's got that Gaddament book, and he's an incredible drummer. But truthfully, when you watch him do a solo, he goes back to those same things he's been doing for years. And that's because that's what's in him. He spent a lot of time playing music, not practicing licks. So there's a time for practicing licks. When you're young, you practice licks. You work on the licks, you work on the stickings, you work on the rudiments. As you get older, you got to play gigs, you got to work with other musicians, you got to become a musician yourself, you got to play. And now it's time to apply what you learned. So I don't spend a lot of time learning the way some people think you learn, which is sitting with a pad and working on rudiments. I learn by listening to music. I learn by putting the music on and playing along with it. That's how I learn. Anyhow, I hope that encourages you, Sean. I hope it encourages others. Thank you all for watching Ask Earl Anything. Without your questions, we don't have a show. Because of your questions, we have a show. Please like and subscribe. And there are some t-shirts in the store. Please buy a t-shirt if you get a chance. And I hope to get more questions. By the way, we didn't have a drum studio sent in, so if you want to, I still want to see you send in your pictures of your studio, a video of your studio, or a video question. I love video questions. I love the little studio segments, so send me your studios. Everybody, thank you for watching Ask Earl Anything. Happy New Year, and have a great 2024.